Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome once again to the pre-show. Sit down, sit down.
Look at them. Look at how beautifully arrayed they are. I just honestly, it's like seeing opening night at a Broadway show in 1930. I don't know how they managed this elegance, this style that our patrons have.
Well, you sort of attract those types of people, I think.
Well, one tries, of course,
Your sense
but
of
hmm?
with your sense of style.
Well, one tries, one tries.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the questions. First
Okay.
question is from Byron. Hail and well met. Oh wait, actually, before we get to the questions, I'm sorry. I just would like to mention we are getting to the. I do want to get to the extra content. The what I've been talking about, where a one of the patrons named Y, he sent in like I don't know 12 questions or 13 questions. I want to do that extra content for the patrons exclusively. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that is hopefully going to be done this week. And sorry for the delay. Okay. First question is from Byron. Hey, hail and well met, Vincent and Charles. It's fortunate to have a YouTube search return the beer second Coulombe audios on Tumblehouse just days before the first of your videos began airing, and have enjoyed the usually erudite and always entertaining discussions. Also, I'm striving for a mail clerk position because, as you know, that is when the big bucks start rolling in.
That's for sure. And it's security. You can stay in the mailroom literally for decades. You don't have to worry about promotions and things like that. It's great. Stability.
Stability. Yeah. Yeah. Boy, I tell you what, I remember my time in the mailroom. I tell you, it's
Yeah.
not easy. I mean,
Hardest 2 days in your life.
it's hardest week, Charles. Hardest week.
Oh,
Gosh.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood. I thought it was 2 days.
No.
I mean, you were in those days you were just the boss's little brother, and now you are the boss. Poor Steve. He's been under lockdown long before everyone else was.
I don't know if he's noticed there's a lockdown.
Probably not. Probably
Yeah.
not, because you kind of, as soon as you had control of the company, I noticed his movements were kind of restricted.
Well, I mean, he's kind of cooped up in his own little domicile, and we give him his breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We slide the tray through the little opening
This
in
is
his
what I'm
door,
saying.
and then he slides his various things to us to. Yeah, so
I tried to. I hadn't talked to him in years, seemingly 3 or 4 years, and I tried to go up to see him the last time I was in town, and Tyrone's number two man, Morris, he stopped me and he told me, "Ain't nobody go down Mr. Franchini's hallway." And I said, "Look, I'm an old friend. I've been here since we started the company. Let me through." And he said he needed authorization from you, and that if you didn't give it, I wasn't going anywhere. So he called your office, but you weren't in, or weren't accepting calls, or maybe your secretary told him a story. Whatever the case, I did not get to see your brother that day.
well, I'm proud of Morris. He's doing a good job, bang up job. That's what security should be like. If they don't know who you are, then you shouldn't get in.
He knows. He knows exactly who I am. Everybody in the company knows who I am. I am one of the leading breadwinners in this company. You guys may be paying me, but I'm the talent. I am the person they come to see. I'm the talking horse, the pantomime unicorn. Yeah, that's me. And they come to see me, see me prance around. And what kind of respect do I get? Bupkis. That's what I get. No respect.
I don't know.
I don't go to the executive dining room. I end up stuck in that commissary with the, I don't want to say rotting fish. We'll just say mackerel. And the only people who treat me with any respect are the secretarial pool girls, the maintenance guys, the transportation people, the gardeners, all them. They all treat me very nicely. But security treat me like an old coat.
Well, what do you want me to do, Charles? I mean, it's out of my hands.
Anything that's important to you, you micromanage. If you don't care, oh, I'm sorry, I've got to delegate. Yeah, fine. We're not having this argument. I mean, we're not airing our dirty laundry in front of all these beautifully dressed people.
All right. Okay, so on to Byron's question. Gosh, well, Malachi Martin first came to my attention in the mid-90s, and I remained indifferent to his works and interviews until a couple of weeks ago. Truly on a whim, I picked up a copy of Windswept House, and I'm halfway through the book. After reading only the first 10 pages or so, I implored protection via a prayer for wisdom to continue reading or discard the book. No joke. I decided to keep reading as I realized my reaction was caused by the possible reality of the scene, and not because the author was promoting the activities on the page. After all, the author had stated that 95% of the story is true, and that 85% of the characters are based on real people. Anyway, my assumption for this question is that you at least are familiar with the work and perhaps some of the reactions to it by others. Do you find it is eerily similar to events that have occurred since its publication, specifically concerning the evolving church in Western Europe, the events of a maturing European Union, an internal intrigue against a pope, and the coming together of like-minded global powers to institute their ideology across the world? What was the reaction by others?
Well, the reaction by others to Malachi's work was ranged anywhere between complete dismissal to complete acceptance. Certainly, there was a key to the characters in Windswept House that was circulating. And I remember talking with Malachi about the another novel he'd written, the name of which escapes me. But
Jesuits?
What's that?
The Jesuits?
No, that wasn't a novel. That was history. This was a novel.
Hostage to the Devil?
That wasn't a novel either. This isn't going to help.
I'm sorry. Those are his three famous ones.
You know what? I'm going to do something I don't do. And I'm going to do it because you forced me to. You forced my hand. How do you feel about that, Mr. Vinny? You made me do this, and I hope you're happy.
It's not about my happiness, Charles. It's about the patrons' happiness. I'm just looking out for their well-being, their comfort, as always.
Okay.
I'm sorry
here
that
it
you
is.
have such disregard for their feelings.
Well, no, I'm very caring. It's just not so you'd notice. It was called Vatican, a novel.
Okay.
That was it. Came out in '86. And that was it. It was very. It was an interesting novel because I talked to him at the time about it, and his villains were very recognizable from you know who they were, but his hero, I thought I detected elements of three different clerics I knew, and I asked him if that was true, and he said, "Yes, you are correct. I put the character together from these three men you mentioned." And I said, "Well, isn't it funny that your villains you can just pull right out of reality, but your hero you had to assemble from as a composite of three different ones?" And he said, "Yeah, well, that's life, isn't it?" But he was an interesting man. I'm very happy I knew him. He was a good fellow. I actually saw a miracle once with him and another priest, the late Father Paul Wickens, Orange, New Jersey, and Dr. and Mrs. Timothy Mitchell. The five of us had dinner one night at the Hotel Barbizon in New York, and it was an expensive meal. I mean, we ordered and ate and drank and just had a very good time. But when the meal was over, the two priests fought as to which of them would pick up the tab for everybody.
Well, he just needs one more then for
Yep.
sainthood.
That's it. That's it. Because I saw this happen, and the Mitchells and I were like, "Ooh, wow, we've never seen this before." But sadly, I'm the only one at that table that night who's still alive.
Oh my God. It's like some murder mystery or something. I don't know. Wow.
Well, it's sad, and that happens more and more to me. I look at pictures of groups of friends, and I'm one of one or two left. Oh, I warn you, the older you get, the more dead people you'll know. It's true. There's no way around it.
I don't like what you're saying, so it's a lie.
Oh, thank you very much, Albert. I don't like that, so it's a lie.
You're just trying to upset me. You know who else tries to upset people and cause anger and fear is the devil.
Oh, so if I upset you and I cause anger and fear, I'm the devil.
Those are qualities shared by the devil.
I see. Well, there are also qualities shared by the United States government, so I don't know what to tell you. In fact, the qualities shared by a lot of institutions in our world today. Not that I'm noticing or anything like that. But no, Malachi was an interesting guy. He was. I hate to say this because it sounds so silly, but he was a very special individual. He was very talented, very, very brilliant. He attracted all sorts of nasty rumors. I remember one priest I knew was yapping at me about him. And see, I not only did I know him, I'd been to where he lived. I knew the family he lived with. And the priest in question says, he lives with a Filipino woman. And I looked and said, "Priest," and I said, "Yes, I know. I've met her." And of course, he was turning bright red, And I said, "She's the maid of the family he lives with." And there was, this dead silence. I said, "Detraction, Father, is a sin even for the clergy." And the worst of it, really, I mean, his living arrangements were kind of unusual. But he told me they came from the fact that when he left the Jesuits and set up shop in New York, he was going to get an apartment. But Cardinal Cook told him that if he had an apartment and lived alone, people would certainly accuse him of all sorts of evils. So he arranged for him to live with this Greek shipping family, the Levanos clan. And these people had money. They had an original El Greco over the fireplace. You don't see that every day. So those are the people he lived with. And yet, even that didn't protect him from scandal, because you'll find three things. Liberals hated his guts because, of course, of the things he said displeased them. Trads, a lot of trads enjoy finding whatever evil they can. And with him, because he was kind of a shadowy figure in some ways, and because he would go anywhere and talk to anybody. I mean, a lot of trads are upset that he was on the Art Bell show.
I don't know who that is.
He was the predecessor of George Norrie on Coast to Coast.
Oh, okay.
What kind of a real traditional Catholic priest would appear on such a show? Well, one who wanted to get his message out, I would have thought, but that's just me. So he suffered a lot from guilt by association. And certainly he had a wide and unusual circle of acquaintances. I know what that's like. But I think all in all, he was on the side of the angels.
Okay. Next question is from Matthew. Could Charles speak about why theistic evolution is so widely believed in the church and why it is false?
Well, those are two very separate questions. The first one is very simple. It allows a Catholic to accept the most widely held theory of the origins of life while holding on to the faith to a degree. So basically, one is able to remain a Catholic while not appearing like a backwoods holy roller snake handler. It's very important, especially for Catholic intellectuals, to not feel that way. As to what's wrong with theistic evolution, well, the question is what's wrong with evolution, full stop. And also we have to make a distinction between macro and microevolution. Microevolution being the constantly experienced variation within the species, macroevolution being the alteration of one species into another. And microevolution, I don't think there's much of a question about. We see it all the time. Macroevolution, pretty much, I think, really had the nail in its coffin with DNA and what we know now about genetics. There is no missing link because there can't be. And every species is locked into a finite number of expressions. Now, they may seem infinite to us, but when you consider that genetically a teacup poodle is the same animal as a timber wolf, it looks pretty infinite to us, but it's not. What they can't become is something other than that. The second problem with evolution is that the theory as we have it now is based upon a lot of preconceptions regarding geology and paleontology, which more and more appear not to be true, at least not in the way that we've always thought of them. Fossilization, for instance, our view of fossilization has been severely challenged by the discovery of organic matter in dinosaur bones, which raises a lot of problems. You see, everything we've got is based upon the idea that natural processes have always and at all times occurred at the same rate in the same way. And that's what we've proceeded on. But if they don't, then we have to come face to face with the fact that we don't really know. I would hazard a guess that in the light of those dinosaur buds that are only fossilized around the edges, around the surface, and remain organic inside, that's not how fossilization is supposed to work. Not at all. It's supposed to be a even. It doesn't, turn to stone from the outside and go in like that. It's supposed to be an even process. So I would say that we don't really know what fossilization is. I would say we don't know why woolly mammoths got quick frozen and still had flowers in their tummies. I would say we don't know a lot that we think we know. And the problem with evolution, between genetics and between the burgeoning lack of knowledge that we have about basic processes, I would think that pretty much knocks Darwinian evolution and thus theistic evolution, upon which it's based, out of the ballpark.
I abide with what you say, but I also, in general, I stay away from the scientific side of these things because it seems like a big giant rabbit hole to me. One of the listeners sort of offered a correction to you regarding Adam and Eve and genetics, and his correction involved, random mutations in the genetic code or whatever. And I don't like listening to the science because I'm not in a position to adequately gauge whether what they say is true or not.
Oh no,
Like
and
it's such I have to accrue so much knowledge scientifically to be able to judge truly what is going on, and I don't like that.
well,
So I
it's like the pandemic.
yeah
If you read all the medical experts contradicting one another and so
yeah
on and so forth, you basically end up agreeing with whomever you support and disagreeing with whomever you don't support, but that's not based on knowledge.
yeah.
No, you've got a good point there. I, and again, I know exactly how you feel, and you've got a whole bunch of conflicting claims by quote unquote scientists. Um, it's very difficult. But one thing I do think that should be remembered is that scientificism, as it's been called, the
Mm-hmm.
religion of science, is just as dogmatic as any real religion. Um, and where this really, really hit me was in chatting with a scientist, not a paleontologist, but an astrophysicist. So it really wasn't his field, but he got very doctrinaire. And I mentioned the dinosaur bones.
Hmm.
And he said, "Oh, I don't believe that." And I said, "Okay, yeah, I guess I'm making it up." And he said, "No, no, I don't think you're making it up. I just can't believe that would happen." And I said, "Doctor, think about what you've just said. You can't believe it." I said, "A properly scientific response would have been, I'll look into it and see if there's anything to it. Not, I can't believe it, because you just reduced it, as you would think, to a dogma." And I told him that I brought up the case of, oh gosh, what was his name? Times columnist, died around 2005 or six.
Jack Smith.
Yeah, Jack Smith. Jack Smith. One of my favorite characters. You know the story.
I know
I
this.
love Jack Smith.
Everyone would love this. This is great.
I told it to the guy. I couldn't help myself. I said, there was a columnist in the LA Times called Jack Smith. Jack Smith was the chronicler of post-war LA's suburbia. The good life. He didn't believe in God. He didn't believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in anything. He was a thoroughgoing materialist, but he was a very fine writer, a very enjoyable column, except when he got on this sort of thing. Well, it so happened that about 1983, there was a very famous poltergeist case in Torrance, California. And Jack Smith wrote a sizzling column about it, saying, and the thing was, it was a 3-day wonder. It was on the news. They had newspapermen go down there, TV men, and funny things happened and all that. So Jack Smith writes a column and says, these people are crazy. Nothing like that could ever happen. It's nonsense, blah, blah, blah. Well, Jack Smith got a letter from the man in whose house it was taking place. And he said, "Listen here, Mr. Jack Smith. You're so smart and you know everything and stuff. Why don't you come down to my house, sit in my living room, and you tell me what's going on? Because you know everything and all that." Well, this is where I came to love Jack Smith undyingly. He published the letter in his column and said, "I'm not going to do that. Because if I go down there and it turns out to be true, I'm going to have to completely reorient my philosophy of life, and I'm too old to do it." I read that and I said, yeah. What he was saying was, I'm a phony. Deal. Drop dead. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, take that. Sure. And I thought, yeah, you tell him. You go, Mr. Jack Smith. You show us how it's done.
There is, and that's important to realize about human nature, because I've come across a lot of people who say, "Oh, if only this happened to make the faith more clear and undeniable. If only that happened, Well, you'd still get these Jack Smiths of the world.
Yeah.
Another Jack Smith of the world is Caiaphas. as
Yeah.
Anne Catherine Emmerich illuminates, that he had an obstinate demon in him. You know, when the dead started walking and all hell was breaking loose after Christ's crucifixion, and the whole city was going to pieces, he was very calm, and he said, "Look, we're going to deny everything. Just we're going to get through this, and we're going to keep things as they were." That
Wow.
impressive, right? A very obstinate demon.
Do you think he could be managing one or more health agencies?
So, is Jack Smith the same one? I'm conflating, I think, a couple people. Is Jack Smith the one who hated Reagan, but no, he always would bash Reagan, but he's the one who
Oh,
said,
no, that was Sam Donaldson.
"Oh, Sam Donaldson." I like
Sam
that one too, because
Donaldson.
that pulls back the curtain on human beings too.
Yeah, well, Sam Donaldson was a very well-known newscaster in his day, but he was a fellow alumnus of New Mexico Military Institute, and this must have been about 1983 or 82, something like that, a long time ago. And I met him in Roswell at an alumni event, and he was in his cups. And I asked him what he really thought of President Reagan. He said, "Oh, he's great. Greatest man I've ever lived under. Tremendous." I said, "Well, Mr. Donaldson, you sure wouldn't get that opinion from what you say about him on TV." And he goes, "Huh, that's just television. You can't believe anything you hear on television. You should know that, kid."
I never grow tired of that. That never gets
No.
old to me, because we kind of have the what's the word, inkling that is the case, that you've got a bunch of talking heads, but in this instance it really does pull back the curtain in an extreme way. That not only is this guy a talking head, but he's actually hurting what he believes in.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it obviously wasn't for public consumption, and for that matter, the other great journalist story that I love to tell goes back to the election of 1988, and Bill Stout. Now, Bill Stout was a news journalist, a TV newsman in LA. I forget, he was on one of the three major networks. I don't remember which one, but look him up. He's still very much, in Google. But Bill Stout was one of these rough, tough, old-time, I was there with Morrow during the war, kind of a rough guy.
Okay.
But he had this manner, but he espoused all the stupidest left-wing garbage. And I hated his guts because of it. Because he made it seem palatable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I say is, if a guy wants to marry his poodle, let him. That kind of thing.
Okay.
So, or whatever it happened to be. So, but that utter dislike in the election night, 1988, November of 1988, turned to total love. Again, a la Jack Smith and Sam Donaldson. Because what happened, he was there with these two young reporter people, a boy and a girl. And at that time, the voter turnout for that presidential election was the lowest we had ever had up to that time. So the guy says, "Bill, you've been covering elections since FDR. Why do you think the turnout's so low?" And the minute he opened his mouth, I knew he was crocked to the gills. I mean, he wasn't slurring, he wasn't falling over, anything like that. He was in control. But, well, what he said was, "Why? Why? I'll tell you why. It's because the American people have finally figured out there isn't a dime's worth of difference between the two parties. They realize the whole thing's a crock." And I was going, "Yeah, Bill, tell him, say it, Bill, say it." And they couldn't shut him up. He was just going on and on and on. And I loved it. Well, then they had to break for station identification. And when they came back, Bill wasn't there. Bill had gone bye-bye. And I figured they had to take him out, but he died a couple of weeks later.
Oh.
And Well, the funny thing about that was that the station manager or president, whatever it was, gave a sort of online eulogy, on-screen eulogy, and he goes, "Bill's exploits at the Cock and Bull were legendary." That being a bar on the Sunset Strip, and I thought to myself, I can well believe that after what I saw. I have absolutely no doubt that the man was an utter hoot to get plastered with. I mean, it was great stuff. So sometimes, when you see the curtain part,
Yeah.
and you get a touch of the real person, it's endearing in a way.
Yeah.
They're not just talking heads. There are people who very often have put their ideals on hold.
Put their ideals on hold. Gosh, I like that. That reminds me of our principled libertarians.
Oh yes, yes. And listen, I got my bailout. I'm sitting pretty. I got me $1,200 of federal money.
Yeah. Well,
not dealing with no local yokels or county mounties no more.
That's great, Charles. Okay. Next question is from Joseph. Vincent and Charles, thank you so much for such good content. Charles, are you familiar with the Story of Civilization History series by Tan Books? There are also activity books for homeschooling. If any listeners have read this series, I would appreciate any comments as well.
Well, sadly, even though Tan are one of my publishers, I have not. So I really can't say anything about it. But I would certainly recommend that those of you who do know about it, write in and let our friend know.
Okay. Next question is from Covington. I've been watching some of Charles's and Professor Biersek's talks on the Mass, where both of them express their grievances in the differences in the words of the prayers of the Tridentine and Novus Ordo, such as the Creed and the Gloria. Have Charles's opinions changed in light of Benedict XVI's liturgical reform?
Yeah, to a great degree. I mean, those concerns, for the most part, were put to rest with the new English version of the Mass. No doubt about it. Now, there are other problems with the Novus Ordo. A lack of a proper offertory, for starters, which Pope Benedict himself bemoaned. He didn't do anything about it, but he complained about it. Most of my concerns in those areas were done away with by the new translation, which incidentally had an added benefit in that for 2 or 3 years after, because priests were not used to it, they stuck to it. Now it's, they're sloughing off and getting creative again with some of them. But it was wonderful to hear them reading exactly what was in the missal for fear of getting, looking bad. That was good.
Yeah. Right. Our last question today from Anonymous.
Oh.
Gallant Coulombe, I will very soon be turning 28. Growing up, teachers and others always thought I would go far, since I'm brighter than your average bear and was good at schoolwork. Additionally, after converting to the faith in high school by myself, the parishioners thought I was a shoo-in for becoming a priest. I guess I'm more pious than your average bear. Vincent's comment about a giant amongst pygmies is apt here, referring to my comments last week. But right now it seems like I'm not anywhere I should be. My job is solid, but it doesn't seem like enough to support a family. Women don't seem to view me as an actual option. It's like I'm a floor lamp that can make them laugh. I did explore the FSSP seminary, but they said I was weak in the pastoral department. I just feel stagnant and lost. I don't really make long-term plans for the future because I ask myself, what future? Have you had a time in your life where you felt similar? What advice would you have for me and other less than young men who feel the same?
Well, Have I ever felt that way? Yeah. Starting probably when I was born and extending down to the present. Uh, I've always been aware of how fleeting things are, and I look sometimes at the varied episodes of my life and really feel like singing "What's It All About, Alfie?" Uh, the truth is that it often takes people who are bright and have a lot of different interests a while to find their niche in life. There are several things you need to do. One is you've got to bear in mind that you were put on this earth for a particular reason. Now, unfortunately, your life did not come with a manual. So, you've got to pray very hard that God makes his will for you known to you. Are you called to the married state? Are you called to the religious state? Are you called to be as you are? That's a hard question. I think if you're not pleased with what you're working in now, you might want to look around for alternatives, because I'll tell you, you're not married, so you're free. You're 28. You're getting a little long in the teeth, but you're not quite ready to be shipped off to pasture. If we're having the same conversation in 10 years, I might be a little more concerned. But for the immediate, look around at something that captures your interest. I mean, and see if there's anything you can make some money out of. Working for a museum or the National Park Service or something. Stretch your wings. They have. I know the Park Service, probably not this year, but maybe. They're always looking out for intelligent, well-read volunteers, and sometimes part-time job people, to act as historical interpreters at various locations. You might want to go back to school, like some of us, and pick up another degree that'll get you into a better position than what you've got now. If you do go back to school, you're going to meet a whole different bunch of people from where you are now. And perhaps one of them is the future Mrs. You. There are all sorts of possibilities. The thing is, if you're not happy with where you are, you've got to do something different, because what you've been doing has simply produced what you've got. So, look around. See what interests you. 28's a great age. I am 59 until November, so I have 31 years on you. Think about that. You were born when I was 31 years old. Amazing. So, go ahead and stretch your wings. Try things you've never done before.
That's hard for an introvert, though. I'm speaking from experience. I know what he's going through. He's in the comfort zone, in a sense, but the comfort zone also happens to coincide with a rut of some sort. But it's hard to get out of the comfort zone.
Really?
That's hard.
Is it?
It's scary.
Is it?
Yeah, it is, actually. I'm actually not joking.
Well, I didn't say you were.
Well, you keep asking the same question, as if I'm lying.
I am. You see, here's the thing. My friend Axel, whom you know, when my nephew Philip first came up with the idea of my coming to Austria, Axel said repeatedly, "Your uncle will never leave his comfort zone." Now, to be fair, he was partly, I know he was partly trying to do reverse psychology on me. So, I understand that. But nevertheless, I did leave my comfort zone at the grand old age of 57. So, it can be done. And, now, of course, if I had been frightened about leaving my comfort zone, being cut off here, trapped in a foreign land, I'd be very, very upset. But I've learned to roll with the punches, just what are you going to do? Besides, you're about to really jump off the comfort zone in August.
Man, I've been out of my comfort zone this whole bloody year.
That's not what you said January 1st.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Okay.
January 1st, it was Happy New Year and blowing horns. How soon we forget.
Whatever, Charles.
Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? Remember ringing in the new year? Yes. 2020.
Yeah.
2020. But I mean, I was very, very much aware of the centennial,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking at the time, boy, I wonder how these 20s are going to roar. What I didn't know is that they would start whimpering like an annoying dog.
Yeah. Okay, that'll do it for the pre-show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned. Full episode coming up.
All right, and thanks for asking that last question. God bless you, Anonymous. And, be strong. Be strong. Pray a lot and look at things you haven't done. And look at things that you have done. Look at things that interest you. I'll tell you a little secret about happiness. You'll be happier doing things you like than doing things you don't like. Because usually you're good at what you like and not so good at what you don't like. So remember that. And again, you've got a kind of flexibility precisely because you're not married that you wouldn't have if you were married. Mr. Floor Lamp.
Okay. All right. See you soon, everyone.
God bless all.